Nigeria on the march again.
On the march again.
Looking for Mr. President.
On the march again.
Adebayo is our man.
We can't express just how important it is for us that you have decided to come and meet with us. It shows your commitment. It shows the respect that we, in this country, we give to elders and leaders. And you have reinforced your commitment to work and produce a country that would all be comfortable. One of you, one of the candidates, either here or outside, will be president. Inshallah. When you become president, we want to be there. We have a role to play. That's why we came together. We believe that there's a lot more than just being president. You need the support of groups such as this. We didn't want to wait for anybody to put us together. We came together. We would listen to you, what you say, if you have something to say.
Thank you, Your Excellencies, for inviting us here. And on behalf of the Social Democratic Party, I must especially express the happiness of my political party that we've been invited to speak with the compatriots. For me, when I'm asked to speak as a presidential candidate, I try as much as possible not to speak as a presidential candidate. I try to speak as a Nigerian, because just looking at the assemblage that is here, you will see that Nigeria is a very lucky country. The people here, even if I use the historical allusion initiated by the chairman, the people in this room have better quality than those who consider the Roman Senate. And Rome was a very big empire. So when you look at Nigeria is like a relay that you run from generation to generation. And everybody is a loser if the last person carrying that baton drops the baton or doesn't win the race. And everyone is a winner if the last person breaks the tape and comes first. It doesn't matter how many mistakes the earlier runner has made. We are running a race together. And I'm saying that because when I look through the room, starting with the chairman, when you started to talk about resource control as governor of Akwa Ibom State, and it was like, at the beginning, some of the attitude is like when we hear people saying things that are an anomaly or a taboo. But you made a very good case for it. And not much of the benefit came where you were governor. But some of the achievements today, which my brother from the Labour Party, Senator Dati Ahmed, has mentioned graciously, it cannot be delinked from the effort you made to tell Nigerians that resource control is very important, and that recognizing the need to reinvest in the community where we produce our crude and other gas and other natural resources is good for the country. And so when you look at that, all those drawings you were making in Uyo, and people will say, okay, the man is an architect, let him keep drawing away, where will he get the money? So it's those things now that your successors, they don't have to now look for the money, and they don't have to do all the drawings now. They just have to keep that legacy and keep the relay going. And that should be a good starting point, microcosm of what Nigeria should be like. And why I'm saying that is because a nation succeeds based on the consensus that it can achieve among its citizens. And the first consensus to achieve is the elite consensus. So even the definition of who's a citizen, how a citizen should be treated, what's the quality. If you hold the Nigerian passport, it's not just in relationship to an airline that you want to travel with, that it should mean something. And we don't have to go back to Rome. It's contained in Chapter 2 of our Constitution, the definition of who is a citizen and everything like that. So I'm happy today that I'm not only competing for the presidency with my colleagues, including Senator Dati. I'm also competing with him as to who is a closer brother to, to Dr. Hakim Baba Ahmed. So if I get one vote in Zaria, I think it must be from him. So, and at a stage, I thought to myself, why must anything that has Nigeria in it? Once I see a letterhead that has Nigeria, then I know that Baba Ahmed will be there. So, and in every forum, he's trying to help us to achieve consensus in the country. And when it started from the north, many people were agitated that maybe he was only concerned with the north. But the idea is that you start building this consensus and spread across the country. And so many of your members here that I have had occasion to follow, how they are working, and I've seen that it is not a surprise that the Compatriots is engaging us at this level of quality. Yes, I just wanted to recognize, show due regard to His Excellency from the PDP, Governor Boni Haruna, with due respect, but I will proceed. And I think that if you look at Chief Simeon Okeke, in fact, we've had cause as a country to go to his community and his house to celebrate the signing of the peace accord in Nigeria, so that after the Civil War. And everyone, in fact, I remember that the definition of what a citizen is includes what happened to those who were part of those signing the peace accord in Amici in 1970. So the idea is that everything we are doing is coming towards one direction. And we who are here are the people now who are vying to lead the vanguard of the next phase of the work. And I remember that my first demonstration as a student, law student, in the first of Ife, was with respect to General Zamani Leopard. In those days of Special Military Tribunal. And and all the troubles that came from Southern Kaduna and all of that. And we were all over the campus. We closed the campus for a week over that. So the essence of it is that everything we are doing is all interconnected. And I've done more than 1,000 Zoom conferences with Ambassador Nkoyo. And so everywhere, we are all combined together. And October 1 last year, latest, we were together with Ajia Inachiroma, always intervening. I'm one of the few that never introduced him as a wife of somebody. I introduced her in her own right for her contributions, even though we are all sons of Baba. So essentially, everyone here, even those whom I might not have had much interaction with, coming together and calling yourself the Compatriots is very important, because the essence of our national anthem is that the Compatriots should arise and come to action. But the issue is this. Yeah. Sorry. The issue, I've gotten the hint from you. But the issue, I recognize the point, and I didn't want to repeat the point you made regarding to INEC. We all agree with you. But the point I'm making is that I want today's conversation to be that even though we may have partisan concerns and all of that, my interpretation of today's meeting is to try to find common grounds for us. To say that the consequences of election should be limited to politicians as much as possible. The consequences of election, especially the negative consequences, should not affect the people as much as possible. Because in many countries of the world, the people vote, but either way, whoever is elected is not going to determine whether they are alive or dead. Whoever is elected is not going to determine whether they keep their job or not. It's not going to affect whether they are able to be normal citizens. And if my contribution to Nigerian politics is anything, it is to make Nigerians to realize that there should be a national consensus on most basic issues and most important issues, And those issues should not be litigated during elections. And politicians should not lead them. But politicians should be coming to convince us that they can carry the national consensus and they will not drop it, and that they have methods and means by which they can keep the national consensus going. And I will conclude by saying there should be 5 of national consensus. One is that democratization has come to stay. I respect the comparative analysis done by Senator Dati Ahmed regarding the relative progress some non-democratizing societies have made. But in the long run, the democratic one will last longer. And the earlier we just create a national consensus on that, the better for us. Our second consensus we must make is that the apologetics about keeping the nation together, apologetics of national unity, and all those things, I think they are well worn out by now. What people are interested in is the fruit of it. Nigerians, they recognize the fact that in your generation, many fought the Civil War, they kept the country together, and we're all united, and it's okay. But I think Nigerians are interested in how this unity guarantees them sound education, guarantees them access to healthcare, guarantees them ability to be in a safe environment. And I believe that Chapter 2 of our Constitution, which is enjoining us to take care of our people, should be of paramount importance to us. 3, is it 4 now? It's 3. It's 3.
Apologetics, and then you spoke about unity. Anyway.
Don't worry. So the third one, I will soon finish, I understand. But the third one basically is that across the country, institutions must be made to work. And it is a sad day that we will be suspecting our institution. Every politician will say, go and audit INEC. But the process of putting them there should have guaranteed that we won't have to do that. At the same time with the police, we complain about all these institutions, and that the Compatriots have a role to play to help us behind, to strengthen these institutions, to ensure that we don't have reasons to suspect them. The fourth is basically that we should try as much as possible to set standards regarding, for the political class, regarding the places where we can go and campaign, things that we can say. These are very important, and I don't subscribe to this notion that maybe in other aspects of life, but in politics, I don't subscribe to the notion that talk is cheap. In fact, being a good communicator to inspire the people is about half of the work of political leadership. Even if you say things that you cannot do. Kennedy did not go to the moon, but being able to inspire the people and to commit people to it. So I think our leaders, what they say is very important, and how they inspire the people is very important. And a unifying language is required for anybody, especially at the highest level, whereby our politics, we've combined the political office of chief executive with that of head of state. So whoever we elect, the politician that we elect to be our chief executive, is automatically our queen or king, is the person who speaks for the country. So that requires that the language should be elevated as much as possible. And the last thing I will say is that we need to save our people from being used as guinea pigs anytime we want to take electoral advantage or want to stop electoral advantage. I do not agree that people who are working very hard, tailors, carpenters, fishermen, anybody, should have their money confiscated by the state just because we are trying to prevent 1 or 2 political parties from bribing people in election, if that's the policy. That is too draconian and that is too far. And the GDP will suffer a lot. I think we should try as much as possible to use other measures and try to make election season, not to be traumatic for the Nigerian people. In conclusion, I thank you for the opportunity and I'm grateful for the attention. And I apologize to my friends if I took too much time. Thank you.
Taking note of the comments from you, I must say I am very much impressed by the quality of your expressions and your statements. Really very impressed. Assuming you win presidency,
Well, the question must be answered because to be president makes me head of state. And the greatest asset I will have will be a united country. And where the unity has challenges, my first priority will be to calibrate that unity. And what I can say is that upon study of it, I've been hearing of this statement several times, and I'm happy now that among the compatriots, I think it's maybe gaining currency, that the country has not been, the history of Nigeria, we have not been as disunited as we are. Well, I respect those who say so, but I disagree. History doesn't say so. History says that even the colonial people who were in charge of northern Nigeria and southern Nigeria, when they will be coming from holidays from England, when they will be on the boat, they will disagree. They will not greet each other. I've seen colonial officers being put on suspension because you are a northern region colonial officer and you want to have tea with a southern Nigeria colonial officer. And you are on suspension for that. They will not greet each other. The colonial secretary on many occasions has had to return many memos because of foul language between the northern officers, and they were British. So the foundation of our intellectual contest, personal contest, the friction has always been there. And then for those of us, I'm sure all of us have read the Lancaster Lancaster House talks towards independence. At that time, the content of it will show. It got to a point where two of our most iconic leaders met during the tea break because it was too hot. And history records that Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe went to Sir Ahmadu Bello and said, Sir Ahmadu, let us forget our differences. We are all Nigerians. And the reply, as recorded, was that, Dr. Zik, let us not forget our differences. Let us understand our differences. And I think that challenge is still before us now. But what I can see generally is that this is a country where we fought the Civil War. I don't think a country can be more disunited than to be shooting at each other with serious intent to kill. And I lost about 7 members of my family to that one in the war. So what I can say generally is that the people of Nigeria are more united as a people. But the elite has broken down its own consensus. And when the Nigerian elite is in trouble, he runs to his religion and his ethnicity. So if he partakes in a political gamble and is cheated, then he will say they don't like my people. But if he's handsomely accommodated, started with a beautiful ministerial appointment, these people are very happy indeed. So I think that many people are rushing to churches now to renew their baptismal names and all of that for electoral purposes. They are saying it's the turn of their religion and all of that. So I think basically let us understand that in this room, the elite is well represented. And the message we should give ourselves is that we should try as much as possible to rebuild the elite consensus, because if we don't rebuild it, we will be going home. We are the owners of the media. We are the people who can host 1,000 people and feed them and tell them what to go and say. We are the people building churches and donating money to mosques. So we are the people telling people that the country is disunited because we have not been able to come together to organize a federal government that accommodates all talents and also recognizes that not everybody can be in government at the same time. And the rest who are not in government are not automatically inferior beings, and they can pursue other ventures in society. I say this because if we recall 1959, when it was agreed, part of the Lancaster agreements, that we should have a united civil service, because until then, there was no united civil service. Each region had its own. And I think it was Daily Comment, newspaper that carried it when the first northern civil servants were reporting in Bobalende in Lagos. And the headline was, the Malams are coming, as if we were being invaded by aliens. But in Bobalende in Lagos there, the Malams, quote unquote, have been there for 400 years. They've always been living with the people. So let me just summarize and say that these issues that the elite appropriate the country to themselves. So if you contest election and lose, it's because they don't like your people. But if you manage to get an appointment 3 weeks later, now the government is more united. And I went to one of our leaders, former head of state, and was telling him that we need to form a unity government. And I said, how is that? Why should I join you in forming a unity government? Because the one I want to form itself is a unity government. Why? Because before I can be elected as president, it has to be a unity government, because you must win plurality all across the country. And so I think that we should understand that the elite should come together, solve all their differences. Simple things as not being promoted in the public service, simple things not being promoted in the army, is given religious and ethnic interpretation. And then I think for me, as a leader, to unite the country, I've taken time to try to understand the history of the country and to understand the people and the diversity of the country. Because ignorance of the country, I've seen how it has led many leaders to make blunders, unintended blunders, or blunders that they underestimated. So we need to, we can be assured that we understand the country, understand how we got here, and that will help us with the unity of the country. And I think also that we have, Nigeria is a long-running argument, or an ending parliament, full of debates that never get resolved. So I'm a lawyer. We go to court, we argue for 2 hours. The judge will say, okay, I decide. So what is happening in Nigeria is that all the discussions from 1945, they are still being discussed today. So we need a leader, and I intend to be that leader, who will rise above these debates and be able to arbitrate it for the people. That's how to get the people united. On every issue, you must be somebody. When you are approaching him, it's not representing his ethnicity, it's not representing his region, it's not representing his religion. It's representing Nigeria, especially the future of Nigeria. And since it's not a stakeholder, or it's not heavily invested in all these arguments, can give a fair and just solution. And then I think that the other issue we are facing is that the elites, by the way we have managed our resources, have created artificial scarcities. And these artificial scarcities now make people to define. In the first phase of modern governance in Nigeria, self-governance, you didn't need to mention your hometown to get a job. Every graduate, you have 5 jobs being offered to you. So you will remember where you came from. But when we decided to not expand opportunities, so you want to hire 2,000 policemen. Chief Okeke will remember how many letters he got when he was chairman PSC. Put my son in the police, somebody, registration number, all of that. But in the past, the police will never have enough people. Will not have enough people. They will have to go from school to school to try to recruit people. So the same thing, we refuse to build more federal colleges. So the few we built, 3,000 students will be looking for 30 spaces. So even from age of 11, a child is already being told, you can't enter the school because of your state, or because the other person has to come in. So I think if we expand opportunities, that problem will not be there, and that can speak for so many other issues. The other issue is that the leader must be firm, because these issues have to be decided. And I think that being firm is one of the attributes that I want to bring to leadership that will unite the country. You should be firm and decisive. And I wanted to talk about the greatest sin of Nigeria, which it will not be committed under my presidency. And that sin, Senator Judiciary has spoken about it very beautifully. And that sin, the original sin of Nigeria, is hypocrisy. There is no other sin we commit that God cannot forgive, but hypocrisy. For example, I don't believe, right from the day of my political maturation, I don't believe in rotational anything. It's just I don't believe in it. And if I see a political party that says we'll rotate power, I don't join them. I'm not saying I'm wrong or right, I just don't believe in it. I believe that the country will find its leadership just by looking broadly. But if you come from a political party whose entire mantra is about rotation, and when it's time to rotate, you start to agitate, and you have problems because you believe, I don't believe in it. That's why I admire so many PDP, including Governor Atta, but I wouldn't join the party. One of the reasons, even that rotation is one of it. But if you are there, and you have been the person who is promoting it, it is wrong for you now to, when it suits you, to say it doesn't matter anymore. But in conclusion, what I will say is that the consensus that we need to keep the country united is contained in Chapter 2 of our Constitution. So we must, and every president, including me, if he places Almighty God and Nigerian people that be elected, will have to take an oath of office to enforce, observe, and respect Chapter 2 of the Constitution. It's called Fundamental Objectives and Directive Principle of State Policy. It was adopted in 1977 at the Constitutional Assembly and it put in the Constitution. If anybody follows its oath of, in conclusion, my answer is that to keep Nigeria united, I will follow my oath of office. Because if I follow it, you will end up in a united Nigeria. Thank you.
July 2009, when President Adewole, Commander-in-Chief, then gave the order, and what happened, and what's not happening now. And of course, I had to take the book on the Commander-in-Chief's table.
Two things I will say at the beginning. One is that in this sector, you are electing only one person as Commander-in-Chief. That's how we have written our Constitution. So that one person has to get it right. Nothing we're going to say in this room. I was at NIPS yesterday, and I spoke extensively on the issue. There is, even in this room, we have enough military experience, from Major General Leckworth to General Mena, and other people who have experience, including my friend, my brother here, who has a bit of security training, and I'm sure other people have had it. The issue is that the Commander-in-Chief, in me, you will get the following things. A clear appreciation of the situation. The most important thing is that before you enter that office, there must be a minimum amount of knowledge that is resident in your head about the situation. So when you're getting briefings, even though you are nodding your head, you know the briefing that is false, you know the one exaggerated, you know the one that is that's contrived. But if you go in there tabula rasa, waiting for somebody to tell you what's going on, that's a problem. Second is that we must understand that sometimes something is wrong with architecture. Sometimes it's just the implementation. And so if we had a different Commander-in-Chief in the last 7.5 years, even if you don't change the architecture, you have a different result. And in some of them, you need to change the architecture itself. So we know those items. Three is that doctrine is very important. And in my interaction, in the course of running for office, preparing, I've spoken to maybe 250 generals. In fact, there was one occasion I had about 180 generals in the room. So nobody can say that Nigeria doesn't have solution. When I was in Kano, I spent a few days there. I spent 2 days meeting with top generals. And now I discovered that the solution is in the room. And you will see from personal experience of people intervening. So the issue is that the doctrine is lost. The original doctrine we had that prevailed over time, including up to the early 2000s, is that West Africa, Lower Sahel, Central Africa, they're part of our theater. So the soldiers, by the time you go to Command Staff College in Jaji, before you go to the War College and all of that, you know that as Nigerian Army, what is happening in Mauritania is of serious interest to you. And 2 guys cannot be shooting each other in Monrovia without Nigeria saying, stop, enough, enough. And the same thing in Chad, any of those things. But what is happening now is that the theater is reduced to Maiduguri Baga Road. That's the man is in charge of that place. And if you study, I don't want to take too much time, the youngest of our units, if you look at this, the 7th battalion, the 7th division, 7th div. If you look at 7th division, you can the first person to head it is now the Chief of General Staff, Chief of Defense Staff. You will see that if you see the way it's done, you will see at the beginning not enough strength even for that division. Second, the kinetics of how that division operates, the doctrine is upside down. So we will deal with that, and we have enough people to deal with it. A few days ago, I saw General Agoa. So we have enough people. The army can reconstitute itself, restore the doctrine, and put it in order. The other issue is discipline and deployment. Adewole Adebayo was the one who first told us. He was leaving behind an army of 22. Salih Ibrahim, thank you very much. Say he was leaving anything goes. It's worse now. And it's as if the provost department is gone. So a lot of things will be done to restore that, to see that we understand it and take it. And once the armed forces are in order, the other services will be in order as well. Then there we have the issue of devolution, especially when we're dealing with the civilian side of it, the civilian part of law enforcement, which is starting with the police and all of that. There is enough, if we don't amend the constitution. The police council, I'm sure Governor Atta was once, and even Governor Buni Aruma, you once served on the police council. Every governor is a member of the police council. When we convoke the police council, you will see that we would do a lot of devolution. Three things we will do. One is that even though we abolish the native authority, the DPOs in police divisions will be people who are now almost the rank of deputy commissioner. So that at the level of the division, they can take decisive action. There's enough seniority there to take serious issues. When it comes to the states, if they don't amend the constitution, they do, I'll be happy. If they don't, I will say that except for staff duties, the commissioner of police should have all operational powers of the Inspector General of Police, so that the matter ends in the state and they can relate better with the state. And then the last part, what I will say is that there is the non-military component of security, to try to have people who are happy, because people have to be happy, people who are loyal to the system, people who don't suffer a lot of injustices. So, but if you don't have that, I was in Kano, just doing campaign, and I'm not a soldier, I'm not anything, but just by talking to people who were attending my rally and following me, we had 3 truckloads of knives. Yes, we're just telling the young men, please, we don't do knives here. Just drop the knife. And as we were going, everybody was there, we had 3 pickups of knives being dropped there. And those people are not against the country yet. They're not even fighting anybody. They just assume that coming out to join the campaign, they should be well equipped with knives. So these are all the things we need to take care of, and you should be sure that the commander-in-chief who is coming in the SDP will know these issues and will have solutions to them.
Would the judiciary interfere? Is it supposed to interpret the law and all the things that we want to discuss? I wouldn't want to discredit my sector, if you know what I mean. But I am definitely concerned. And then on our part, I think we can at least draw attention to the concerns, because without confidence in the judiciary, then we are in trouble. I agree we talk security, I agree we talk economics, but I think one pillar of integrity that we cannot play down on is the judiciary. Thank you.
The politicians themselves should try as much as possible. The judiciary serve the people. I'm a lawyer, and I'm happy the learned stake is here. The political cases are shocking the judges. Majority of cases now prioritize, people are in prison. They cannot get a hearing because the Constitution says, the Constitution amended by the politicians, for the sake of politicians, says that even though you can languish 30 years in jail awaiting trial, but when my election is in dispute, the court must deal with it in three months. So it is not right for democracy, for political class, politicians, to comment on judgments of court. But I would encourage that behind the scene, the leaders of the court can be advised by the compatriots on what to do. But I think politicians should desist from commenting on judicial proceedings.
A few things you said jump out at me. You talked about INEC. Our next meeting is with INEC.
Yes.
We certainly are going to take up the points you made here and try and make sure that they conduct credible elections. It's the only way they can give back sovereignty to the people. Democracy, you talk about democracy, you talk about the judiciary, citizens, security, accountability, illicit dispute, and certain words also came out. Fairness, equity, justice, and then the Constitution. So I want to thank you for coming. We will continue to rub minds with you, and our last appeal to you, please, as we go into the election, let us not destroy one another. Because when one of you becomes the president, we don't want him to go with a baggage and a disability. We want him to go in with his integrity. And also, say my paper will be released. Yes, we will release a statement containing all of this one. We thank you most sincerely for coming. We are sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Is our man. Is our man.